A single flare of white light split the dark sky over Nova Terra, brighter than the twin moons. People in the streets stopped, pointing, their voices confused. Then the second light came, red and angry, falling fast like a burning star. It didn't stop. It didn't slow. It struck the far side of the city with a sound so deep it rattled bones. Buildings trembled, glass shattered, and a wall of fire rolled upward into the sky. At the colony's central control tower, alarms screamed. Officers shouted over each other, trying to read the sensors. The strange object was not a meteor. It had power, had a course. It was followed by dozens more. They cut through the clouds like knives, each one finding a target: factories, power plants, and military outposts. Every strike was too perfect to be an accident. The sky turned black as massive shapes dropped out of orbit. No one had seen ships like these before. Long, jagged, almost alive. Their hulls were covered in moving plates that glimmered like insect wings. They moved with unnatural precision, firing beams of blue light that sliced through defense towers. As if they were paper, in a small apartment on the east side, a boy clutched his mother's arm as the windows blew inward from the shockwave. She pulled him close, shouting for him to keep low. Across the street, a family tried to run for the underground shelters, but a blast tore the road apart before they could reach it. The air smelled of burning metal and ash. Inside the control tower, Commander Rian leaned over the comm station. "Send the signal to Earth now," he barked. Technicians scrambled to boost the signal strength. The enemy was jamming them, flooding the spectrum with static and ghost signals. The message pushed through for only a few seconds before the interference swallowed it. On the other end, far away, Earth's deep space listening post caught the faint. Broken words: Nova Terra, under attack, unknown enemy coordinates, and then nothing but static above the planet. The colony's orbital defense platforms turned to fire. Brilliant streaks of light launched toward the alien ships, but the enemy's shields shimmered and absorbed the blows. In return, beams of crackling energy tore through the platforms one by one. The explosions bloomed in silence from the surface, but each one meant hundreds of defenders gone in an instant. The alien fleet moved like a predator circling prey. Dropships the size of city blocks descended, unleashing swarms of smaller craft. These darted between buildings, firing at anything that moved. Soldiers on the ground fought in small groups, firing into the swarms, but the aliens moved too fast. Every time they fell, their bodies twisted and reformed into something even more grotesque, as if they were part machine, part living thing. A deep rumble shook the streets as the main power plant erupted. The city lights flickered and died. Shadows swallowed the streets, lit only by fire and weapon flashes. Panic spread faster than the enemy. People ran in every direction, not knowing where safety was. In the western sector, a team of Marines fought to protect the last functioning shuttle bay. "If we can get at least one ship out, maybe Earth will know what happened," their leader shouted over the roar of gunfire. The shuttle's engines warmed, glowing brighter, but before it could launch, a shadow fell over the bay. An alien dreadnought drifted into view, blocking the sky. One blast from its underbelly cannon turned the bay into molten wreckage. "Commander." Rian's voice came over all surviving comm channels. His words were heavy but calm. "This is the last stand. Fight until you can't. Humanity will remember Nova Terra." By now, entire districts had been erased from the map. The alien fleet didn't slow. They weren't here to conquer, they were here to destroy. From orbit, massive weapons began targeting the planet's crust, causing tremors that cracked streets and toppled towers. On the alien flagship, deep inside its command core, the enemy leader watched the destruction through dark, insect-like eyes. Its voice was cold, speaking in a language no human could understand. Yet its tone was unmistakable mocking, certain of victory. In the shadows of the command deck, one of its officers clicked and hissed, asking if the humans might find their homeworld one day. The leader's mandibles twitched in something like a smile. "They will never find us." The last human gunship in the sky was struck by 3 beams at once, spiraled down into the city, exploding in a flash that lit the streets like daylight. For a moment, then it was gone. The alien fleet began to rise, their mission complete. Behind them, the once green world burned in a ring of fire visible from orbit. The oceans boiled, where the strikes had hit deepest, far from the battle. In a quiet listening station on the edge of Earth's solar system, an operator stared at the scrambled signal they had received. The voice was almost lost in static, but the fear in it was clear. She forwarded it straight to Fleet Command, her hands trembling. In the main war room, red lights began to flash as the Admiralty listened to the fragmented message. No one spoke for several seconds. Then one admiral leaned forward and said, "Activate Protocol 700. On Earth, deep in the hidden shipyards, the first alarms began to sound. Hammer strikes rang out. Engines roared to life. Somewhere in the darkness of space, 700,000 warships began to wake. The galaxy didn't know it yet, but humanity was already moving. A single chime echoed through the war room of Earth's Fleet Command, sharp and urgent. Dozens of officers turned toward the main display, where the last image from Nova Terra was frozen on the screen half. City swallowed in fire. The room was silent except for the hum of machines until Admiral Voss stepped forward. His voice was steady, but every word felt like a blade. "They have made their choice. Now we make ours. Activate the beacons." Across human space, from the frozen stations on Pluto's orbit to the deep mining colonies beyond Alpha Centauri, the sky lit with crimson. Giant beacons, massive towers of steel older than most planets, burst into life, sending out pulses of light and encrypted signals through hyperspace. The message was simple. All fleets, all veterans, all ships, turn to the fight. In the Titan-forged shipyards, the largest in human history, the night shift froze as the order came through. Then they moved faster than ever before. Welding torches flared. Robotic cranes lifted slabs of armor onto the frames of unfinished battleships. Every dock filled with noise steel clanging, engines firing for the first time. Old ships in storage were hauled out of orbital graveyards and stripped down for refitting. On the colony world of Redwater, a man in a tattered admiral's coat looked up at the beacon shining in the sky. Admiral Kale had been retired for 20 years, living quietly near the ocean. Now he walked to his small hangar, opened the massive doors, and looked at the dust-covered warship inside. "Wake up, old friend," he said, pressing his hand to the cold hull. "We're needed again." The call didn't just reach soldiers, it reached legends. The Iron Fist, a dreadnought mothballed since the War of the Rift, was brought back into service. Engineers swarmed over it, replacing its weapons with newer, deadlier models. In underground vaults, experimental ships once considered too dangerous to deploy were brought out and loaded onto carrier bays. Everywhere. Humanity's allies watched with unease. On the trade world of Clara, merchants gathered in the council hall, whispering in fear. "If humans are calling every ship they have," one said, "then someone has made a grave mistake." On the crystalline world of Vexera, the ruling queen addressed her advisors. "Do not interfere. When humans move like this, they are unstoppable." In the orbital command station above Earth, Admiral Voss stood before a massive star map. Shimmering red outline began to grow across it, the planned battle network. Each dot represented a fleet, and there were hundreds of thousands. "Are not going to match them ship for ship," he told his officers. "We'll bury them in steel and fire until there is nothing left to fight." Training camps came alive with new recruits and veterans alike. Soldiers ran drills in full combat. Armor, their breath steaming in the cold air. Orbital simulators ran nonstop, preparing pilots for the largest space battles humanity had ever attempted. Weapons factories switched to triple shifts. Every freighter and cargo ship that could be converted into a gunship was brought into service. In the shadows of Mars's moon, Phobos, black-hulled ships waited in silence, cloaked, invisible to sensors. These were the ghost fleets, rarely used and almost mythical. Now they would be unleashed, their crews ready to strike deep into enemy space without warning. For 3 long weeks, the mobilization spread across human-controlled space like wildfire. Every world, every station, every shipyard contributed. Even the poorest mining colonies sent ships, rusted and patched, but armed. Humanity had been attacked before, but never like this. The destruction of Novaterra was not just an attack, it was a wound that bled across the entire species. On the 22nd day after the colony fell, the fleet tally was finalized. 700,000 warships, dreadnoughts, carriers, destroyers, gunships, stealth cruisers, and planetary assault barges. It was not a fleet meant for defense. It was a fleet meant to end an enemy. In the war room, Admiral Voss gave the final order. His voice carried across the command channels to every ship, every soldier, every pilot. We do not forgive. We do not forget. We hunt them now. We do not stop until we have torn their empire apart. Somewhere in the cold dark of space, the enemy did not yet know. But the largest armada in human history was already moving toward them, and nothing would stand in its way. The Titan-forged shipyards hung above the swirling storms of Jupiter like a city made of steel and fire. From orbit, it looked alive, thousands of lights blinking, cranes gliding between half-built warships, streams of shuttles carrying workers day and night. The air inside was thick with the sound of hammer strikes, plasma welders, and the deep rolling thrum of ship reactors being tested for the first time. Every bay was full, every dock occupied, and every worker knew one thing: these ships were not being built for defense. They were being built for revenge. A massive shadow passed over the shipyards as the Iron Fist, humanity's oldest surviving dreadnought, was towed into dry dock. Its hull was blackened and scarred from wars centuries past, but its bones were still strong. Teams swarmed over it, stripping away outdated systems and replacing them with the latest heavy rail cannons, shield amplifiers, and AI-controlled flak arrays. Engineers whispered to each other as they worked. If the Iron Fist was coming back, then the enemy was already doomed in Dock 6. The experimental warship Vanguard's Edge took shape under the careful hands of the secretive Black Star cores. Built from a stealth alloy that bent light and sensors around its hull, it was designed to slip deep into enemy space and tear out their heart before they knew it was there. No one outside its crew was allowed within 100 meters of it. But its sharp, predatory outline sent a clear message. Humanity had no intention of fighting fair. Cargo haulers lined up at supply depots, bringing in the raw materials of war. From the asteroid belt, exotic metals from alien traders, and antimatter fuel cells guarded by entire squadrons. Each shipment was unloaded with speed and precision, feeding the endless hunger of the forges. Sparks showered from giant fabrication bays where battleship armor plates, the size of apartment blocks, were stamped and shaped in minutes. On Mars, the Red Dunes assembly lines thundered with the birth of hundreds of heavy assault mechs towering. Bipedal war machines armed with plasma lances and shoulder-mounted missile pods. Their eyes glowed a deep crimson as they powered up for the first time. Workers stood silently for a moment, watching them march in perfect formation toward the waiting carriers in training facilities scattered across human space. Recruits were pushed to their limits. Pilots drilled in massive zero-gravity combat spheres, their small fighters weaving and spinning through simulated asteroid fields while dodging hostile fire. Marine units practiced boarding maneuvers, storming mock enemy ships with explosives, charges, and breaching tools. The best of the best were pulled aside for specialized missions: stealth infiltration, planetary sabotage, and high-value target elimination. Far away, in the cold expanse beyond Neptune's orbit, a hidden vault opened for the first time in a century. Inside rested the Eclipse Protocol weapons, devastation in compact form. Entire moons had been destroyed in testing. Now these warheads were loaded onto deep strike cruisers under heavy guard, each one capable of turning a planet into molten glass. Only a handful of admirals even knew they existed, but all understood. If these were being armed, there would be no going back. Alien traders passing through human space began whispering among themselves. They spoke of old stories, the times humanity had been wronged before, and how they always returned with more firepower than anyone thought possible. The market shifted. neutral factions started moving their fleets out of the way, and even human allies kept their distance. The buildup was too large, too focused. The galaxy could feel the storm coming on the command deck of the orbital fleet control station. Admiral Voss watched the final pieces come together. Status reports scrolled across the holotabel shipyards ahead of schedule. Recruitment at record highs and ammunition stockpiles at full capacity. The war machine was awake, and it was hungry. He turned to his staff. "In 2 weeks," Voss said, "this fleet moves. I don't care if we have to chase them to the edge of the galaxy. They will pay for Novaterra." From the deep void beyond the solar system, faint alien transmissions were intercepted. They were mocking, confident, certain humanity could not find them. The intercept officers smiled grimly. The enemy didn't know the hunters were already sharpening their blades. Finding the enemy was like searching for a shadow in the dark. The alien fleet had not left a trail any normal sensors could follow. They jumped through uncharted sectors, hid among dead stars, and masked their energy signatures with precision. But humanity had no intention of giving up the hunt. In the cold, black beyond the outer colonies, 3 stealth frigates glided silently through the void. Their hulls were coated in sensor-absorbing material, making them invisible to all but the closest scan. Inside the lead ship, Silent Vow, Captain Lyra, studied the faint data on her holoscreen. Weeks of searching had given them only a whisper. A series of distorted radiation spikes, too regular to be natural. Her second-in-command frowned. "Could be a trap." "It is Lyra," said flatly. But traps work both ways. They followed the trail into a sector marked unmapped on official charts. The stars here were dim, cold. Gravity sensors picked up strange readings, massive objects drifting without heat, like frozen asteroids. But when their long-range cameras focused, the truth emerged. These weren't rocks. They were the skeletal remains of worlds, shattered and hollowed out. In one of those broken shells, they found a fragment of Novaterra's own defense satellite. Its human markings scorched, but still visible. That meant the enemy had passed through here recently. On the far edge of the sector, something moved. At first, it was just a ripple of shadow against the stars. But then the outlines sharpened ships. Dozens of them, alien in design, slipping into formation. The Silent Vow went dark, every system but life support shutting down. Through her visor, Lyra watched the enemy pass by. Their hulls glinted with the same jagged, insect-like plates seen during the Novaterra attack. Lyra whispered into her com. "Tag their jump signature. We follow." The alien fleet vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind faint ripples in subspace. Those ripples were their weakness. Human science ships had been working around the clock to develop a new tracking AI, one capable of mapping hyperspace distortions in real time. For the first time, humanity could follow an enemy without being seen. Elsewhere, special ops teams moved into action. On the desert moon of Chiros, a human strike unit infiltrated a pirate stronghold suspected of selling intel to the aliens. The fight was brutal, tight corridors filled with smoke, flashes of gunfire lighting the walls. When it was over, the team dragged out a captured information broker. With a knife at his throat, he revealed what he knew. The attackers came from a place known only as the Shroud Sector. The name was whispered in fear among smugglers and mercenaries. Ships that entered the Shroud often didn't return. Those that did came back damaged and silent, their crews missing or insane. In Fleet Command, analysts pieced together the intel. The Shroud Sector was a maze of unstable wormholes, dead suns, and radiation storms strong enough to fry a ship's systems in seconds. It was the perfect hiding place for an empire that didn't want to be found. Admiral Voss studied the holographic map of the Shroud. "We send scouts first. No full fleet. Movement until we're sure." His eyes hardened. "But when we do, we go in with everything." Weeks later, in the dead of night, on an uncharted planet's surface, a human recon team stumbled upon something unexpected: an alien prison camp. Inside, in rusted cages, were not only survivors from Novaterra, but prisoners from dozens of other worlds. Thin, scarred, and half-starved, they told the same story. The insectoid invaders didn't just conquer planets, they consumed them. stripping them of people, resources, even the soil itself, leaving only empty husks behind. The recon team transmitted everything they could before slipping away, chased by alien patrols. That data reached Earth within hours. The hunt was over. The enemy's hiding place was no longer a mystery. Humanity had found the Shroud Sector. The first human recon ships emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Shroud Sector and immediately felt it. The space here was wrong. Gravity shifted in faint, nauseating waves. Light from the nearest star seemed to bend and stretch, as if the sector itself didn't want outsiders to see clearly. Sensors flickered with false readings, making it hard to tell where one asteroid ended and another began. The silent vow led the formation deeper in, weaving between drifting wrecks of ships, some alien, some human, and some so old no one could guess their origin. Every hull was torn open, stripped of anything useful, like the carcass of an animal after scavengers had picked it clean. Captain Lyra kept her voice low. "Stay sharp. This place isn't abandoned. It's feeding." He soon found the proof. On the far side of a fractured moon, a massive station clung to the rock like a spider's nest. Its walls pulsed faintly, as if alive, with a dark organic texture fused into metal. Ships moved in and out of it constantly, bringing in massive containers. Recon drones slipped closer, sending back grainy visuals. What they saw made the crew go silent. Inside those containers were living beings, hundreds of them crammed together, bound in metallic restraints. The drone's sensors picked up multiple species, many unrecognizable, and among them, humans, survivors from Novaterra. When the drones scanned deeper, the truth came out. The insectoid invaders were not just warriors, they were harvesters. They captured entire populations and transported them to processing worlds where they were used as slave labor or worse, turned into food for their rulers. In Fleet Command, the footage played in the war room. Admirals hardened by decades of service stared at the screen without speaking. The enemy wasn't conquering territory. They were stripping life itself from the galaxy, the invaders. Known among some fringe traders as the Krylith, were a hive. Empires spread across hidden worlds inside the Shroud. Their ships were grown as much as they were built, layered with living armor that could heal itself in battle. Their cities were vertical hives stretching deep underground, with breeding chambers producing endless waves of soldiers. On one intercepted transmission, a high-ranking Krylith warlord addressed its council. Its mandibles clicked in a slow, deliberate rhythm as it mocked humanity. They are loud, but they are soft. They are many, but they are fragile. They will break as Novaterra broke. It wasn't just arrogance, it was confidence built on centuries of victory. The Krylith had wiped out civilizations before, each time leaving nothing but silence behind. But this time, it had made a mistake. Special ops teams returned with more intel maps of the Krylith supply routes, locations of their hive worlds, and weaknesses in their planetary shields. The reports were dangerous to obtain. 3 teams were lost completely, and one ship returned with only a single survivor. His last words before collapsing in the medbay were clear. "Don't hesitate. Burn them all." In the war room, Admiral Voss stood over the map of the Shroud Sector. Red marks indicated every known Krylith stronghold. For a long moment, he said nothing, then turned to his officers. "We've seen their face. We know their crime. Now we take the next step." His voice hardened into steel. "Assemble the fleets. All 700,000 ships. We are going in." From Earth's orbit to the far edges of human space, the call went out, and the galaxy watched in silence. One by one, fleets emerged from hyperspace, their hulls gleaming under distant suns. The gathering began slowly. Soon the numbers swelled until space itself seemed crowded with steel. Above the dark side of Earth's moon, entire squadrons drifted in tight formation. Dreadnoughts the size of cities floated beside sleek destroyers. Carriers with open bays ready to launch waves of fighters, and armored troop transports capable of delivering millions of soldiers. The Iron Fist held position at the center, its black hull absorbing the light, the silent symbol of humanity's resolve. From the shipyards of Titan, fresh warships arrived daily, engines still glowing from their first ignition. Their crews were new, but their eyes were hard, ready. From Mars's red skies came the assault barges, each carrying thousands of mechs. Their towering silhouettes visible even through the thick hangar doors, the ghost fleets emerged from the shadow of Phobos, dozens of black-holed warships designed for stealth kills. They slipped into formation without a sound, their commanders offering no salute, no greeting. Their presence alone was a promise of silent, merciless strikes. Farther out on the edges of the asteroid belt, the Vanguard's Edge and its sister, stealth cruisers powered up for the first time in full view of the Armada. Their hulls shimmered like liquid shadow, barely visible against the black of space. Each one carried weapons no official registry admitted existed. Over 20 staging points were established across human territory, each a hub where fleets gathered before joining the main force. Civilian traffic vanished from those sectors. Entire trade routes were shut down to make room for warship movement. Freighters carried ammunition, fuel, and medical supplies in endless streams. Everywhere, channels buzzed with final preparations. Engineers triple-checked reactor cores, pilots ran through last-minute combat drills, and soldiers loaded their armor with fresh power cells and ammunition. Special ops units received sealed orders to be opened only once they entered enemy space. Even humanity's few allies sent token fleets not out of loyalty, but out of fear of being the next target if they stayed away. Their ships kept to the edges of formation, dwarfed by the sheer size of the human armada. From the orbital command station, Admiral Voss surveyed the gathering storm through the vast observation window. Below him, the planet glowed softly in the distance, oblivious to the weapons arrayed in its defense. The Admiral knew they weren't here to protect Earth. This was not a defensive war. This was retribution. When the final tally came in, the number shook even the most veteran commander's 700,000 warships. It was the largest military force ever assembled in human history. The fleet was divided into waves. The first, to punch through the Shroud's outer defenses, the second to hammer the hive worlds, and the third to hold the territory once the enemy was broken. The moment came quietly. Admiral Voss stood at the central holotable, his voice carried across. Every ship, every deck, every station. This is not just for Novaterra. This is for every world they have taken. We do not stop until their empire burns. In unison, 700,000 engines roared to life, while the combined light of their ignition flared brighter than a sunrise, casting a ghostly glow across the void. Slowly, the fleet began to move wave after wave, slipping into hyperspace, leaving only the fading glow behind. The galaxy had never seen a force like this. And in the heart of the Shroud sector, the Krylith had no idea the storm was already on its way. The first human wave burst out of hyperspace at the edge of the Shroud sector, and the stars lit up with war. The Krylith outer defenses had been waiting. Massive fortress stations rotated into firing position, their organic metal hulls flexing like living muscle. Spikes along their surfaces flared with energy, hurling lances of plasma into the void. Swarms of Krylith attack craft poured out from hive-shaped hangars, darting toward the human formation with eerie precision. But the humans did not slow. At the front of the assault, the Iron Fist's main batteries roared, sending railgun slugs, the size of shuttles, through the nearest fortress. The kinetic impact shattered its outer shell, exposing a writhing mass of alien tissue and molten alloy beneath. Within seconds, 2 more fortress stations were struck by coordinated dreadnought salvos, their shields collapsing in showers of blue sparks. From the flanks, carriers launched wave after wave of fighters. Thousands of small, fast craft cut into the alien swarms, weaving between enemy fire, their autocannons spitting streams of glowing tracers. Explosions blossomed in every direction, filling space with debris. The ghost fleets moved next. Cloaked until now, they slipped into the chaos and began striking at the Krylith command ships. One by one, enemy coordination began to falter as their commanders were wiped out in silent surgical strikes. On the bridge of the Silent Vow, Captain Lyra stood calm amid the chaos, directing her ship through the thickest fighting. Target. the hive transports, she ordered. If they can't move reinforcements, this line breaks. Her gunners responded instantly, cutting through one massive transport after another. Each one erupted into a silent fireball, scattering debris. Across the battle zone, the Krylith fought with ferocity, their living ships tearing into human cruisers with bladed rams and acid weaponry. On the destroyer Hawkeye, Marines fought to repel boarding swarms, firing shotguns and flamers into the corridors as alien bodies piled up. Even as losses mounted, the human line held firm, tightening like a noose around the enemy position. Then the Vanguard's edge made its move. Emerging from cloak in the shadow of a dying fortress, it fired its main weapon, a beam of pure white light that cut straight through a Krylith hive ship from bow to stern. The ship split apart in seconds, its living armor writhing and burning. Before going still, the weapon recharged in under a minute. The Vanguard's edge cut down another. In Fleet Command's battle feed, Admiral Voss watched the tide turn. "Push through," he said quietly. "No retreat." His voice was calm, but his eyes never left the map. The first wave was tearing the enemy's outer shell apart faster than projected. Hours into the battle, the last fortress station exploded, its remains drifting in glowing shards. The surviving Krylith forces began to scatter, some retreating deeper into the shroud, others charging in desperate suicide runs. The human fleet destroyed them all. When the shooting stopped, space was littered with wreckage. Hundreds of human ships had been lost, but thousands of Krylith vessels now floated lifeless, their empire's first defensive ring in ruins. The path to the hive worlds was open. Admiral Voss sent a single transmission to every ship in the Armada. Phase 2 begins now. The human Armada emerged from hyperspace above the Krylith homeworld for the first time in their history. The Krylith knew fear. The planet was enormous, a swollen sphere of black hand-red terrain, pulsing with faint light like a living heart. Great hive spires jutted miles into the thin atmosphere, each one a city, a fortress, and a breeding ground for billions. Massive bioshields shimmered around the world, drawing power from reactors buried deep beneath the crust. But the humans had come prepared. At the center of the fleet, the dreadnought Eternal Resolve opened fire first. Its main guns launched planet-cracking tungsten rods wrapped in plasma sheaths. The bioshields flared under the impacts, rippling like water. But the sheer kinetic force ripped holes straight through. Immediately, carriers began disgorging entire wings of bombers. Thousands of craft dove toward the surface, their payloads tailored for maximum devastation and time-matter charges. Atmospheric disruptors and specialized munitions designed to incinerate organic structures. Wherever they struck, hive spires collapsed, burning from the inside out. The Krylith threw everything into the defense. Vast fleets of living warships launched from subterranean docks, some the size of human cities. They rose through the shield gaps in great swarms, spitting acid storms and lightning arcs at the human fleet. The humans met them head-on. The Ghost Fleet struck from the shadows, taking down enemy flagships before they could rally the defense. The Iron Fist and Vanguard's Edge carved open the heaviest Hive Guard ships with precision fire. On the Silent Vow, Captain Lyra personally led a strike team planetside, landing amidst a battlefield of burning spires. Her Marines fought through corridors of alien bone and flesh, planting warheads deep inside the primary breeding chambers. The ground war was brutal. The Krylith were faster, stronger, and born to kill, but the humans fought with cold, calculated rage. Every Marine knew why they were here. He remembered the colony that had been wiped out. He remembered the screaming transmissions cut short. They would not stop until this world was Ashdod. Hours turned to days. The Krylith world began to break. The core reactors beneath the crust were exposed. Massive detonations ripped through the planet, splitting entire continents. Seas of molten rock swallowed hives by the thousands. The skies turned black, then red, then white-hot with the heat of destruction. From orbit, Admiral Voss gave the final command: fire the cleansing barrage. Every ship in the fleet opened fire at once, Railguns, plasma cannons, missile swarms all poured into the dying world in a single final strike. The Krylith homeworld shattered under the bombardment, its crust splintering like glass. A shockwave rippled outward, scattering burning debris into space. When the light faded, nothing remained. The Krylith species, the empire that had slaughtered, a human colony was gone. The fleet fell silent. No cheers, no celebration, just the cold, heavy knowledge that justice had been done. Admiral Voss sent one last message across the fleet. The dead are avenged. We go home, and in the black void where the Krylith once ruled, only silence remained.